Hey, fifth graders. All right, so this is actually going to be lessons 8 through 10. So 8, 9, and 10 all together. And the reason why they're all together is because they all have to do with ratios. We've not really talked about ratios before, but it's all relatively straightforward. So let's get into this. Okay, so a ratio is just comparing two different things. And one of the things that you need to know about ratios, is, well, basically it's these dots. All right, they look, I'm gonna draw them nice and big. Hopefully they'll show up on the video. They look kind of like that. So if you were typing it, it would be the colon. And really what you have, so if we take a look at unlocking the problem, Max sells bouquets of roses. There are 3 yellow roses and 2 red roses. What is the ratio of yellow to red? So we want yellow to red. All right, that's the ratio that we want. So we're going to compare those two things. This word here, to, that's what that means. So every time you see that symbol, read it as 2. Okay? Now, on the picture there, they've got the little circles, right? So there's 3 yellows and there's 2 reds, which are in black and white, but they got yellows, or they got a Y and an R. So you would say that there are 3 yellows to 2 reds, okay? So you could say 3 to 2, like that, or you could just write it like this, okay? So this means the exact same thing. And in addition to that, we can write ratios as fractions. Fractions are basically ratios that compare some number of things to the whole, okay? But you can also write it just like that. So any of these things, these all mean the exact same thing. 3 to 2, 3 to 2, or 3 over 2, all exactly the same, okay? So the first thing that you're comparing when it comes to the fraction, this first thing, yellow, that's going to be our numerator. The thing that you're comparing it to is the red, so it goes over 2. All right? And I don't think it gets too much into why you would do that. So just trust me, I guess, at this point. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll take a look at the next page here. And we'll just do a couple of these. All right, so we'll just do number 1 right off the bat. So 1A says, this is still dealing with red and yellow counters, says how many red counters are there? So for A, it's how many red, and there's 4. For B, it says how many yellow counters are there? And there are 3. And now it says, what is the ratio of red to yellow? For C, is going to be, I'm just going to do R to Y. Okay, so red to yellow. Okay, so remember 2 is this colon, it's 2 dots over each other, like that. And so how many red are there? There's 4. How many yellow are there? There are 3. So it's 4 to 3. All right, pretty straightforward and fairly easy. I think the rest of these you guys can probably figure out. Again, it's not complicated. If you do have questions, obviously email me or show up in a Google Meet and let me know. On the homework, there's a couple of fun ones that are like vowels to consonants in the word ratio. In fact, let's just do that one just for kicks and giggles. So that's number 10 on the quote-unquote homework, though I guess all of it's homework. So you've got the word ratio right here, all right? And we want vowels to consonants. Vowels to consonants. 2, again, means this. All right. Well, how many vowels do we have? We got 1, 2, 3. There'll be 3 here. How many consonants? We've got 1, 2, 3 there. Oh, no, sorry. On theirs, it's just the word ratio. I thought that looked weird. Okay, so vowels still 3, but consonants now we only have 1, 2, R and T. Okay. And if I asked you to write that as a fraction, I'd say, okay, so write it as a fraction. Well, you would put vowels 3 That's not part of your homework, it's just this, but that's how you would do that. So it gives you some harder words that hopefully you can have fun with. Lesson 9 is, oh, this is a really fun one. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, in lesson 9, equivalent ratios. And you've probably heard the word equivalent before. In fact, you should have heard the word equivalent before. You've definitely heard it before. You might not remember it, but I've used that word frequently. Equivalent just means that they are the same. Yeah, for our purposes, it means that they're the same. So you could have, and not the same like written the same, but equal to the same thing. Sorry, something flashed up on my computer weirdly. Anyway, so yeah, if I have 3/5, okay, and then I also gave you the fraction 9/15, and I asked you, are those two equivalent? Well, obviously 3/5 and 9/15, the numbers aren't the same, but the fraction is actually the exact same fraction, right? Because you could divide the top and the bottom by 3 here, and that would equal 3/5. So these two are equal to each other. They're the same fraction, you've just cut this one into smaller pieces. If you think of it like as a pizza, this pizza was cut into 5 slices, and then, I don't know, Steve ate 3 of them. Over here, this pizza was the same size as this one. It was just each of the pieces here was cut into 3 additional pieces, and so Steve ate 9 pieces instead of just 3, because Steve likes pizza, I guess. So yeah, so if we're looking at ratios, let's look at 1. So you've got 1a, which is, there are ratios 3/5, or 3:5, and 12:20. And it wants you to write both of them as fractions. So we always put the first number on top. So this is 3/5. And then this one is 12/20. And then, so that's part A. Part B says, are the ratios in simplest form? And well, 3/5 is simplest form, right? But 12/20 is not, because we can divide this by, actually quite a few things to get it down to a smaller number. Let's try dividing it by the biggest number we can think of that goes into both of these, which in this case is going to be 4. All right, so 12 divided by 4 is 3. 20 divided by 4 equals 5. So for part, well, B is just no. And then C is to write both ratios in simplest form, which is going to be 3/5 and 3/5. And then D asks, are they equivalent? Well, since we simplified them down to both 3/5, then the answer is yes. All right. Let's look at, let's see, which one is hard? Let's look at number 7. Number 7 is probably the trickiest one on here, because something you can run into, on a lot of these, you're going to say, oh, I can like literally convert between one number and another. Like, actually here, let's do number 4 first. I'll show you kind of what I mean. Okay, so on this one, they actually want you to make an equivalent ratio, right? So you have 5 to 2, and they say that's equal to something to 4, all right? So you might look at this and say, well, to get from 2 to 4, I had to multiply it times 2, right? 2 times 2 equals 4. So I just need to do that to 5. 5 times 2 equals 10. And you'd be right, and that's exactly how you would solve that problem. Now let's look at number 7. 7 says 14 to 21 is equal to blank to 15. Well, you might look at this and say, wait a minute, I can't go from 21 to 15. That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, it's kind of a confusing way to do this. If I gave you 14 over 21, and I said that was equal to some number over 15, Well, we've always just converted from 21 to 15. How do you do that? You can't, right? There's no, well, there is a number that you can multiply 21 by to get to 15, I'm sure, but it's not a whole number. It doesn't make sense to do that. Well, your issue here is that this is not simplified. If you simplify this first, then you can figure out that. So let's take this one, and rather than worrying about comparing it to 15, let's just simplify. Well, what number goes into both 14 and 21? Hopefully somebody said 7. I'm going to assume that I heard it. Okay, 14 divided by 7 is 2. 21 divided by 7 is 3. Now, if I said 2/3 is equal to some number over 15, this is much easier, right? Because I can convert between 3 and 15 super easy, right? 3 times 5 is 15, 2 times 5 equals 10. So our answer is going to be 10 again. Okay, so for a couple of these, that comes up again on number 5 is another one that's like that, where you have to watch out because it doesn't super easily convert between the two. But just remember, find simplest form and then work your way back up to the other number. And all of these will work out nice and pretty. So no too big of a deal. So that's lesson 9. Lesson 10 is still, now it's rates, which is basically ratios, but slightly different. So let's take a look at the unlock the problem, which is on GR21. So first of all, it says, you know how to write ratios to compare two quantities. A rate is a ratio that compares two quantities that have different units of measure. A unit rate is a rate that has one unit as its second term. So probably the unit rate that you guys hear most often, the computer is shrinking, that you hear most often is miles per hour, right? That is how many miles per 1 hour. So if you're going 35 miles per hour, that means you could go, if you drove at that exact same speed for 1 hour straight, you would go 35 miles. 35 miles per 1 hour, 35 miles per hour. It says, Raphael is, sorry, it's just funny, is shopping at a used bookstore, used book and music store. A sign advertises 4 CDs for $12. What is the unit rate for the cost of 1 CD? So you want to know how much money per CD, okay? So the first step is write a fraction that form, write in fraction form to compare dollars to CDs. So we have dollars over CDs. Now, previously when we've done fractions, it's always been comparing the same thing, right? A lot of times I just have you comparing, say, slices of pizza to total amount of slices of pizza that somebody ate compared to the whole pizza, right? That's our fraction. Well, now we're comparing 2 different things, and hopefully the glare isn't too bad and you can see this okay. But it's dollars over CDs, and then if we were going to just fill this in from our what we know that there's $12 and there are 4 CDs. Well, now we have a fraction, but we need to simplify it, okay? So 4 goes into 12 3 times. 4 goes into itself once, right? So this is $3 for 1 CD. And another way you could write that is $3 per CD. Oops, let's spell CD correctly. That would be embarrassing. You could even do, so instead of per, you could even do $3 per CD like that, like this little slash. Any of these things mean the same as this. Okay, so let's take a look at some problems in here. All right, let's do number 4 first of all. So number 4 says 150 miles on 10 gallons of gas. Okay. If your parents ever go out and buy cars, one of the things that they're going to be interested in knowing is how many miles per gallon. That's what this is figuring out. So you went 150 miles on 10 gallons of gas. Now the division here is super easy, right? So you go 150 miles over 10 gallons would equal 15 miles over 1 gallon. Okay? And you could write that just as 15 mi per gallon, like that. So this just means 15 miles per gallon. It's the same as this. It's not a big deal how you write it. It's up to you. Let's see. All right, let's try. None of these are really all that difficult. Yeah, basically all of these are pretty straightforward and pretty easy. So yeah, let's we'll do number 8 just to give you one more example. And actually, we'll do number 8 and then we'll do number 11. So number 8 says $208 for 4 tires. So we're going to figure out what is the rate per tire, basically. Okay, so you're going to divide 208 by 4. Well, 4 goes into 25 times 4 goes into 8 twice, so that's going to be 52. Okay, so it's going to be $52 per tire. Just like that. Really straightforward, right? So shouldn't be too bad. I'm getting smaller and smaller. Number 11 is a little bit tricky just because you have to pay attention to some things. So here we have $1.50 to rent ice skates for 30 minutes. Now, because we have done this the entire time, going, okay, so it's $1.50 for 30 minutes, so let's figure out how much it is per minute. But you have to read the problem very carefully because that's not what it asks. It says, what is the unit rate per hour for renting ice skates? So if we spent $1.50 for 30 minutes, well, an hour is 60 minutes, which is twice as many, so it's really just going to be $1.50 times 2, which hopefully you guys can figure out in your head that $1.50 times 2 is $3. And just write per hour. Okay. So not too hard, as long as you didn't fall for their trick of putting 1.50 over 30 and then figuring out the price per minute, which would have been not very much money, but might not have worked. It might not have been great for you. It would have been like 5 cents per minute, basically. So yeah, anyway, that's how you do that, and that gets you through all the way to lesson 10, and lesson 11 is a little bit different, so I'll make that a different video. So anyway, have a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.